But what I want to do is show you how to use this machine to where you are not afraid of it, you are not intimidated by it, you understand when to adjust your tension and why you are adjusting your tension, how to thread the machine, uh, and what you can do and what you cannot do to this machine. You know, you really cannot break this machine, but you can throw it out of time. So I will explain that to you. But the main thing I want to show you is how to get on this machine and master this machine. It's not difficult, and it's only a machine. That's all it is. It's a machine. You control it. It does not control you. So I'm going to show you what I do and how I do it. Everyone else have their ways of sewing and how they use the machine, but I'm going to show you how I accomplish um, what I'm able to accomplish with this machine. Okay? Okay, now what I'm going to do is show you how to thread the machine. Now, we have 9 steps on this machine. Some machines might have maybe 10 or 11, but I will show you how to thread this machine, and I will also show you how to thread one of our other machines that have a different configuration up here. But once you can thread one machine, you can thread any machine, and once you see how the machine is threaded, well then a lot of time you can figure out how to thread any other machine that you see. But some machines have more steps than others. I'm going to show you this one, and I'm going to show you another one, which are the 2 common types of machines that you will see. So this one have 9 steps. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is switching this little arm right here. 6, 7, 8, 9 is the last step, which is the eye of the needle. Now, a lot of times when people see someone thread a machine, first thing they think is, gosh, I would never remember how to do that. Well, look at it this way. It's only 9 steps. Now, if it was 90 steps or 900 steps, now that's a lot of steps. But 9 steps, if you look at it from that perspective, it's really not a lot. I mean, that's nothing. If you compare 9 to 900 or 9 to 90. So, right up in here, most machines are a little different, but the purpose is pretty much the same. So this one have a pin that sticks up and it have 2 holes. Now, I am only going to use 1 hole. Some people will use both of them, and I'll tell you why I only use 1. I only use 1 because it allows my thread to stay free. I don't like using the second one because that puts more tension on my thread as it's threaded and I start to sew. So that could tighten my stitch, that could keep my stitch tight. So I choose to use only 1 of the 2 holes. Like I say, some people will use both of them. Now, this is number 1. Number 2. This one has 3 holes. So what I'm going to do now, some people thread it different, but I'm showing you how I do it. I'm going to go from right to left, from left to right, from right to left. Now that's the way I do it. Now some people will some people would thread it to where they go right to left and they go around this pin, and then they will go around again Again, I don't do that because as the machine starts to sew, by wrapping it around like that, for me, and it could be just psychological, is that it puts more tension on my thread. So I choose not to do it that way. You can if you wish, but I choose not to. So I'm going to go back to my right, from right to left. This is your tension. And when we start sewing, I'm going to show you when to adjust the tension left, when to adjust to right, and why you're doing that. Now, when you go through the tension, you want to pull your thread just like you're flossing your teeth. You pull. You want it to be tight. Now, this is where a lot of people get confused and start to doubt themselves. It's right in here. Now, one of the things that you want to do is that you want to make sure that you're going between these two plates when you thread this. Now this, right now the plate is tight. If I raise this foot, this plate, it opens up. When I let the foot down, this plate closes it. And that's what keeps the tension on your thread. And that's why you really need the walking foot when you're sewing something that's thick. Now this can't go too thick. If it go too thick, the foot will be up too high, and it would allow these two plates to be open. So when it's sewing, your thread will get all batched up. And I'll show you what it looks like. Now the other thing is that when you're threading around this tension, a lot of time people will make the mistake and put their thread behind those two plates. It will go behind it. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when you do that. Even though that when you're sewing on the top side, it will look so good, and then you finish and you look on the bottom of your product, and you will see what will happen if you put your thread behind the tension instead of going in between. Okay, so this is number 1, number 2, number 3 is the tension. You pull it tight. Now, see the spring here? One of the things you want to do, you want to come around the tension and back over that spring, so when you pull the thread, that spring is bouncing. If you pull the thread and that spring is not bouncing, it is not threaded correctly. What I show people, one of the ways to, when you first start, to remember to do that is that you take the thread, once you pull it through the tension and you pull it tight, you bring the thread around and let it touch the other side of the thread. If you let it touch, you came far enough, and then come over that spring. Now this is number 1, number 2, number 3, and this is number 4, which is this little hook here. So you want to go under. You want to go under this little hook here. So when you pull, that spring is moving. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, number 5. Just pull it through, and you want to have you more thread, so you just raise the foot, and that opens up the tension, and you can pull it very easily. Then let the foot back down. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is through this eye. I'm going to go through this eye. That's number 6. You see how when I pull it, that spring is moving. This is number 7. This eye here is number 8. And your machine could have a little hook pin down here. They all they look different, but they pretty much have the same setup as far as the way it's threaded. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 through this eye, and 9 is through this needle. Now, you always want to go from left to right. From left to right. If you do not do that, you may get lucky sometime and it sews correctly, but most of the time it will not. Now why, I don't know. It's just the science of it. Whoever that designed these machines, they designed it that is the science of it, is that you have to go from left to right. I'm not sure if it's because the bobbin is over on the left side, but you have to go from left to right. Now there are people out there that know about machines. They could tell you exactly why you have to do that. But I know when you do that, it works. Now one of the things I want to say is that a lot of times when people are going from number 1 to number 2 and they have these 3 holes, they would think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So they would count these 3 holes as individuals. But this is only 1. It's not 3 counts here. This is only 1 count. So I'm going to try and answer the questions that you are having about your tension. And also, now, I am not a mechanic. I don't know the mechanics of this, but I can show you what works for me. And when I first start sewing, and I bet it took me 3 years before I would touch my tension, because I thought I was going to do something and turn it and couldn't get it back to where it was. And so I was just so intimidated by it. So every time that I worked on a different project, the leather was thicker or thinner, my stitch would look different, so I would think it's something wrong with my machine. I would take the head off, take it to the shop, the guy take it into the back room, bring it back, say, okay, it's done. And after about 4 times of that, I'm thinking, well, you can't be doing too much back there in that back room, because it's not taking him long to bring it back. So what I did, I went home and I just turned my tension tight all the way. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to break this fear of using my tension. And so I just turned it tight all the way, and I start to sew. And just kind of give you an idea here. Now, I just turned my tension in all the way. And so what happened was that my stitch looks like a straight line. There's no break in it. It just looks like a straight line. So what I've learned is that if I loosen my tension, well, if I tighten my tension too tight, this is what will happen on the top side. The bottom side it's fine. It have the break in it, but it's the top side that looks like a straight line. Excuse me. So what I learned to do, I will loosen my tension until I start to get a better looking stitch. So the whole idea behind just tightening your tension real tight and then look at what the stitch looks like, what it does, it removes the fear of you adjusting your tension. Okay, here. Now, my stitch is beginning to look a little better. It's beginning to have more of a break in here, but I'm going to loosen it a little more. And that's going to give me even a better look. Now, my break in here is even better. So the more I adjust it, the better my stitch will look on the top side. And it's going to look even better on the back side. Now, it is a balancing act. Now, the other thing that sometimes that can cause your stitch to be too tight or too loose is that if you're adjusting your tension, if you are adjusting your tension and you still can't quite get it, a lot of the time it could be the screw on your bobbin housing. And what you would do, this is what I do. I tighten this screw all the way, and what it will do is just make it real tight, hard to pull. Then I will start loosening it up a little bit as I can put it just a little more, and then I will put it back in and stitch with it, see what it looks like, and just barely tweak it. Just barely tweak the screw here. And eventually you will be able to balance everything out. And like I say, it is a balancing act between turning your attention to the left or to the right. And if you get to a point to where you have to turn your attention all the way out, or loosen it all the way out, just to get a good looking stitch, go to your bobbin housing, because that means your bobbin housing is a little too tight or it's a little too loose. So if you get to this point to where you have no room to adjust, you go to your bobbin housing. But only if you get to this point. And so now the other thing is that can cause your stitch to look too tight, and that's if your thread is hung up somewhere, and when you're sewing, it just becomes real tight. But you would be able to identify that much easier, because you can be sewing and all of a sudden it just gets tight. But if you are working on a project and you move to another project to where one leather is thinner than the other one or thicker than the other one, and you're having a problem with your tension, start here. Start here. And don't be afraid to adjust that, because once you are no longer afraid, well, then you will sit there and you would adjust it, and do not let it frustrate you, because you will get frustrated because you're trying to finish something up or you're trying to start on something and your stitch is not right. Always start here with adjusting. Like I say, to get to know your machine, you tighten your tension very tight, and then start loosening it up, and you will start to see where your good-looking stitch will be. And a lot of time you can just leave it there, and that's pretty much where your machine will say, okay, if you leave me here, I'm going to give you a good stitch. But sometimes you have to make adjustment. But anyway, I hope that this was some help to you, and